So what if the United States was secretly planning the biggest financial rug pull in history? It's a pretty startling theory, right? It was published in the Asia Times, and it sends this really dire warning to central bankers all over the world about the future of the US dollar. The question is this a credible threat or is it just fear-mongering? Let's break this all down.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to unpack this whole theory. We'll look at the alleged plot itself, see if anything like this has ever happened before, and then put it into the bigger context of this new global financial order that seems to be emerging. And crucially, we'll bring in some serious reality checks before asking, what's next? So first up, what exactly is this global rug pull theory? Well, it all kicks off with a pretty urgent warning to anyone who manages a country's money.
This is the big, explosive question at the very heart of the article. The claim is that the U.S. is cooking up a massive reset of the whole global financial system to get out from under its own mountain of debt. And its weapons of choice? Two things you might not expect: cryptocurrencies and gold.
I mean, listen to this. The article opens with this incredibly dramatic statement. It's not just some casual prediction. It's framed as this urgent, life-or-death call to action. It's basically warning entire nations that the value of their savings could just collapse.
Okay, so how would a plot like this even work? Well, the theory really hangs on two key things: America's absolutely staggering debt and the rise of a specific kind of crypto. The motive, according to the article, boils down to this number. It's almost impossible to even wrap your head around it. The interest payments alone are spiraling out of control, and major creditors like China and Japan are starting to sell off U.S. bonds. So the argument is that Washington is being backed into a corner and needs a really drastic way out.
Now, to understand this whole alleged plot, you need to know about this key ingredient: a stablecoin. Just think of it like a digital dollar. It's a crypto token that's designed to always be worth $1 US, because it's backed by real stuff, like US Treasury bonds. So the article lays out this alleged strategy, and it's basically a financial Trojan horse. Step 1, the US promotes these new, regulated stablecoins backed by its own debt. Step 2, the whole world is encouraged to buy them up as a safe digital version of the dollar. Step 3, they wait until trillions of dollars of US debt are held this way, and then, boom, the trap is sprung. The US either depegs the stablecoin or just devalues it, basically wiping out its value for everyone else.
And the endgame of this whole alleged plot? A potential devaluation of, get this, up to 95%. The article suggests America could just slash its $37 trillion debt down to under $2 trillion. It would effectively just export its financial problems to anyone and everyone holding these now worthless digital assets.
Okay, a 95% wipeout sounds absolutely insane, right? It's almost unthinkable. But the article argues that this kind of bold, unilateral move, well, it actually isn't without precedent. In fact, it claims there's a pattern of this kind of behavior in American history.
To back this up, the article points to two huge historical resets. You go back to 1934, FDR devalued the dollar against gold to deal with the Great Depression debt. Then, in 1971, Nixon completely cut the dollar's link to gold, which gave us the fiat system we have today. The theory is that this stablecoin plot is just the next chapter in the same playbook. And the point here is this recurring theme. The article argues that America's historical approach can be summed up with this one simple phrase: our dollar is your problem. It suggests a long-standing habit of shifting the burden of its own economic issues onto the rest of the world.
But this isn't just about debt. The article frames this entire alleged plan within a much larger geopolitical battle for the future of money itself. You've got the US on one side and a rival group of nations on the other. So this really sets up two completely competing visions for the future. The US strategy seems to be doubling down on a system based on debt, just in a new digital form. But in contrast, the article points to the BRICS nations. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and their allies, who are pushing for a system that's anchored in real, tangible assets, like gold. Okay, so that's the theory. It's dramatic, it's a huge global power struggle, it's a lot. But before we get too carried away, we have to ask the most important question. Does any of this actually hold up to scrutiny? Let's dive into some really important reality checks. Well, the first major counterpoint is about where this warning even came from. The Asia Times article is upfront about it. The bombshell came from Anton Kobyakov, who is a senior advisor to none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin. So, as this Reddit user points out, you have to consider the lens here. Is this an objective warning, or is it geopolitical messaging designed to make people lose trust in the dollar? And then there's a huge logistical problem, which a commenter on the original article pointed out. The vast majority of U.S. debt is actually held by Americans themselves. We're talking pension funds, insurance policies, 401ks. A move like this wouldn't primarily punish other countries. It would absolutely bankrupt the American public.
So all this skepticism really boils down to a few key questions that kind of challenge the entire idea. Would the U.S. really destroy its own credibility, the very thing that gives the dollar its power, for a one-time get-out-of-jail-free card? Who is the real target of a plan like this? And finally, should we see this as a credible threat or just another shot fired in an information war?
And that brings us to our final section. After looking at this shocking theory and some really serious counterarguments, what are we supposed to take away from it all? Is it just a crazy conspiracy, or maybe a sign of real changes coming over the horizon?
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Whether or not you think this whole global rug pull theory is even possible, it taps into a very real debate that's getting louder every day about the future of global finance. Countries really are looking for alternatives to the dollar. The rise of digital currencies, this renewed interest in gold, those are undeniable trends. The theory might be extreme, but the tensions it points to are very, very real. The only question now is, what happens next?